invite you to stand as you are able and comfortable. Blessed be God, the source of all life, the spirit of wonder, the root of faith, the flowering of love, and the abundance of our hope. As is comfortable to you and your spirituality, I invite you to join in prayer. Creating God, you surround us with the marvels of this world and give us the ability to explore the mysteries of creation. You fill the earth with the spirit of wisdom and inspire us to search for the truth. You have sent us prophets and teachers as witnesses to your liberating justice. You have come among us in Jesus Christ to teach us by word and example how to love one another. Help us in this new academic year to enjoy our learning together and enable us to take delight in exploration. Give us patience in our studies and strength to meet new challenges. We pray all this through the inspiration of your Spirit. Amen. I invite you to remain standing for our gathering hymn, which is inside your program.
As the students, staff, and faculty of Luther College, we are bound together by common values, vision, and hope. Ours is a community where faith meets learning, river meets bluff, foundation meets innovation, and history meets future. At the start of this new academic year, let us celebrate the gifts of this community and reaffirm the heart of our shared mission.
We are a community of reformation. We affirm the liberating power of faith and learning. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom.
We are a community of belonging. We embrace diversity and challenge one another to learn in community. We discern our callings. We serve with distinction for the common good. What does the Lord require of you? To do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God.
We are a community of faith. We are deeply rooted in an understanding of grace and freedom. We are boldly open in worship, study, and service. We seek truth, examine our faith, and care for God's people and creation. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. Let the nations be glad and sing for joy.
We are a community of learning. We move beyond our immediate interests and our present knowledge into our larger world. We discipline minds and develop whole persons. We are equipped to understand and confront a changing society. Make me to know your ways, O Lord. Teach me your paths.
We are a community of intersection. We stand at the meeting of river, woodland, and prairie. We practice joyful stewardship of the resources that surround us. We are enlivened and transformed by encounters with one another, by the exchange of ideas, and by the life of faith and learning. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds.
Good morning. Welcome to the opening convocation of 2023. A convocation is a gathering of people. In today's assembly, we will consider the way in which the title of our speaker's memoir, Solito, Alone, Single, Lonely, has special meaning for someone who had spent his young life both surrounded by friends and family and lonesome for his parents in La USA. Every day of his journey to join them, he confronts waiting, uncertainty, patience, strangers, kindness, fear, and faith. He does this in movement and in transition, neither home nor home. For our first year and transfer students, you are also in an in-between place, surrounded by people who are not yet lifelong friends, and in spaces that contain familiar items but aren't yet home. I know I am joined by all of us here to say, we aim to provide you with support during this time in your life's journey. In the meantime, Javier Zamora has painted a powerful picture of what it means to grow an identity while on the move. I'm grateful he is here as our guest. Welcome, Javier, and welcome all of you. At this time, I ask the faculty to stand, turn, and show your appreciation to our incoming class. It is my pleasure to invite Provost Brad Chamberlain forward.
Good morning. Part of the celebration at Convocation each year is installing any new endowed chairs and center directors. Today, we welcome back returning endowed chairs and center directors and install one new endowed chair. The Berkestrand Economics and Management Endowed Chair was established by Suzanne Berkestrand and Dennis Berkestrand, class of 1964, former business owners who believe in and support the entrepreneurial spirit that drives our nation's free market economy, and in recognition of the profound impact Luther College has had on their lives. The Berkestrand Chair must be a strong teaching scholar dedicated to empowering undergraduates to achieve, who recognizes the importance of free market-friendly perspectives on economic theory, private enterprise, and good business practices in classroom discussions. Please join me in congratulating Professor Greg Patton in this new role.
Good morning. It is my honor and privilege to introduce to you Javier Zamora, world-renowned poet, activist, and author of Solito, this year's common reading for Paideia. You can find more about him and his great works and all that he's done, but I chose a different approach to introduce who he is through the lens of his book. Solito is the Spanish word for alone, as President Ward stated. Zamora does an amazing job highlighting his journey from El Salvador to the United States as a 9-year-old child. While the events could have easily led Zamora to write about the pains and dangers of undocumented migration, or the way awful immigration policies have created a dangerous system, a lot of the focus is placed on the humanity and people he encountered on his journey. As I reflect on the recent celebration of the 60th anniversary of the March on Washington, I see a connection between Zamora's journey and MLK's dream, which is the common good. In a society where MLK's dream has yet to be realized and the common good is yet to be understood and prioritized, people must come together to ensure first that they are all safe, cared for, and valued. It means embracing diversity and valuing the contributions and perspectives of all. Yes, Zamora was on this journey alone, but his journey speaks to the intersection of the common good and belonging. The intersection of the common good and belonging speaks to how we can strive towards creating more cohesive, inclusive, and supportive communities, where the needs and well-being of individuals are aligned with the collective welfare. This concept is highlighted in Zamora's journey and reminds us how we can find compassion and community where we least expect it as we embark on life so that we all may flourish. Please join me in welcoming Javier Zamora to Luther College.
Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. I'd like to begin with, and I haven't done this before, I'm on my own journey to acknowledging my own indigeneity and where I come from, and that's a country that hasn't treated its indigenous population in the kindest of ways. And I am Nahuatl Pipil, and I am beginning to learn some of that language, which there are only 150 fluent speakers in the world remaining. And so I would like to tell you that I love you in my language first, and that it's Nimetz Tasuchta. So thank you for having me here. And now, good morning, everyone, and congrats on your very first year of college. You did it. You're starting another year of school after years of assignments, of classes you didn't want to take, classes that you hated, classes that have changed your life, classes you will never, ever remember to have taken. Great experiences, terrible ones, and yet here you are, ready for more, but this time, you will have a little more of a choice in what subjects you want to explore. In dedicating your morning, afternoons, nights in the pursuit of your own curiosity, it doesn't matter how you got here to this beautiful campus. What matters is that you have already completed something, and for that alone, you should be very proud. For some of us, or perhaps most, if not all of us, the mere fact that you're sitting in that chair in this beautiful auditorium in front of that amazing organ, about to embark on 4 years into the unknown, seemed like an impossible reality, an unlikely outcome for someone like you. But to you, I say, believe this moment, cherish it. It's happening. You are here, and you definitely deserve to be here. I'm not up on this stage to pretend that all of your experiences will be positive. I will explain what I mean in a bit, but for now, if no one else in your life has said it, let me be the one to tell you that I see you. I see all of you. I see your accomplishments. I see your hunger for knowledge, wanting to change this one and only world that we have. But also, let me be honest. During my time in college, I felt huge amounts of uncertainty, fear, and like I couldn't complete what was being asked of me to receive my college diploma. For the most part, I felt like I didn't deserve to dedicate 4 years of my life to reading books, taking exams, going to lab, working out at the gym, staying up late at the library to cram before a final the day after I stayed up too late partying, and so on, and so on. As a previously undocumented immigrant, someone born in El Salvador, college or university wasn't written in the stars for me. And when I was an undergrad, I felt huge amounts of guilt to be learning as my family worked multiple jobs to stay afloat financially. So even when I did graduate with a BA and later a master's, I kept disbelieving the facts that I am a first-generation college graduate. I am the first member of my family to receive a BA. I am the first to have a master's degree, and now I am the first in my family and my country to be a New York Times best-selling author. Thank you. Thank you. But even after receiving that first college diploma, all of you have yet to touch or frame in your office, parents' living room, or merely forget and keep in a drawer somewhere. I did not believe I deserved that piece of paper. I didn't believe I deserved joy, happiness, success. Imposter syndrome is another word for what I felt. So let me dedicate this speech to preparing every single one of you to believing in what you've already accomplished and also what you will accomplish over the next few years on this campus. We must learn to celebrate the small wins in order to continue on our path for the bigger wins. And just being here today is an extraordinarily huge win. I also hope you acknowledge that you have not gotten here on your own. And I'm here to remind you that you won't complete your time at Luther on your own either. It takes a family, a village, a college counselor, good professors, bad professors, coaches, therapists, friends, and enemies. We must learn to ask for help, to be able to receive it, and later to help others who need it. I hope that in sharing a bit about my own story, you will understand why it's been difficult to believe in my accomplishments. But I hope you're aware that now, after 15 years of bad therapists and eventually a great one, oh, I'm freaking proud of all that I've done, and I'm proud of how I've gotten here. I now believe in my tenacity, in my work ethic, in my overall badassness that has gotten me here on this stage speaking to all of you on the very first day of classes. So let me start by introducing myself again. Hi, my name is Jose Javier Zamora Cetino, and I'm the author of the first Salvadoran-written New York Times best-selling memoir, Solito, a memoir told in the present tense by my 9-year-old self. I was born in 1990 in a small fishing village to two 19-year-old parents during the Salvadoran Civil War that lasted from 1980 to 1992. My dad was a devout leftist, and because of his involvement at the local fishing co-op, had to flee the country before I turned 2. My mom followed in 1995 because as a woman, El Salvador wasn't and continues to not be the safest country. Both of them left thinking that their time in a foreign land wasn't going to last more than 2, 3, 5 years max. My grandparents, who loved me and cared for me in my parents' absence, believed my parents were going to return. I believed my parents whenever they ended our weekly phone calls with, "We will come back soon, mijo." But around 1997, the sentence changed into, "You will soon be here in San Rafael, California, with us, mijo." This shift was not unique to my family. At school, I wasn't the only kid with at least one parent who had migrated to what we called La USA, the country of Baywatch, Full House, Friends, Saved by the Bell. The country us children knew was the best in the world because it had to be that good for our parents to choose it over us. And so, my parents did what any parent would do. They tried any way possible to be reunited with their one and only child. I interviewed at the US Embassy as myself and was quickly denied. Then I interviewed trying to pass off as a much lighter, much taller kid who had an American visa. It didn't work. The only reasonable thing left to do was hire Don Dago, the same coyote that brought Mom over in 1995. He had been with her every single step of the way. She made it in less than 3 weeks, and if I can use the word, it was a relatively safe trip. So, by the time I turned 9, I was counting the days before I would embark on my very own trip, an adventure like Simba in The Lion King. I had no idea what the trip was going to look like, but I knew that at the end of it were my parents' faces, the Golden Gate, the Full House house I thought my parents lived next to, the fountain in the Friends opening credits, and of course, Pamela Anderson. It's during this period of great anticipation and hope that I will finally see my parents that I begin my memoir, just days before I left my fishing village of La Herradura at dawn on April 6, 1999. The trip Don Dago promised was supposed to only take 2 weeks, and I was supposed to be by his side the entire time because the lie I rehearsed to tell any Mexican authority who asked was that Don Dago was my father, and I was his Mexican son who could tell you who the best Mexican presidents were. Of course, I wasn't Don Dago's only customer. Our immigrant group was comprised of 6 other Salvadorans: Patricia, a 29 or 30-year-old mom with her 12-year-old daughter, Carla; Chino, who couldn't have been older than 20; Marcelo, who was probably 28, 29; Chele, who was in his mid-30s; myself, and Marta, a beautiful woman in her 30s. Grandpa decided to accompany me to the Guatemalan border town of Tecún Uman because he thought we would only be there a few days. But, as Don Dago put it, the situation changed, and we spent 2 weeks in Tecún. After 2 weeks, Grandpa had to leave, and our group had to change course and travel to another border town, but this one on the coast. And it's here that I'll read a small excerpt. Ocos, Guatemala, April 27th, 1999. We're in Ocos, a small fishing town. In La Herradura, I heard the ocean waves crashing against the rocks only during big storms. The estero water underneath the pier was calm, sweet, and surrounded by mangroves. If I wanted to get to the ocean, it was a 30-minute boat ride through the mangroves. Here, the ocean is walking distance, a few blocks away. The loud roar of the tides, the sand, the breeze, the salt in the air remind me of home. Here, like in Tecún, at night I stare at the ceiling, waiting for something to fall on my bed. A cockroach in my mouth, a spider on my eye, a scorpion at my feet. There's no mosquito net hanging on top of my bed like back home. Grandpa isn't here to talk to me before falling asleep, to go out for walks and explore the town. And because of that, I feel alone, lonely, solo, solito, solito de verdad. I chose this passage not only because it explains the book's title a bit, but also because it's a passage that occurs right before Don Dago leaves us as we step into a small fishing boat that's packed full with immigrants from all over Latin America. It's the first time I hear Portuguese, meet a Honduran, see a flock of flying fish, and it's the very first time I fear for my life. After 22 cold and nauseating hours, we land on a remote Oaxacan beach and realize we must find our very own way to La USA because Don Dago ran off with Marta. We will never hear from him again. The people that remain from our original group of Salvadorans, Chino, Patricia, Carla, Chele, Marcelo, and me, I call the Six. In the 7 weeks and 2,000 miles that follow, the Six become my family. The Six become my family. I couldn't have been able to say this sentence before I turned 29. For 20 years, I learned to hide the weeks it took me to make it to La USA because for most of those years, I was undocumented. I couldn't afford to have anyone ask questions about how I had gotten here. For those 20 years, I pretended that none of the immigrants I met on the way to La USA existed. Erasing them was easier than facing them. Carrying this weight internally is the one true solitary task that I've embarked on in my life. Was I solito when my parents left? Not really, because I had my grandparents. Solito during my trip? Nope, because I had the Six. Solito in this country? Yes. I felt like I had no one who could possibly understand what I had lived through. I kept silent because I'd internalized what politicians said, and some continue to say about immigrants. I felt shame of being who I am, and even in the liberal media, books included, flatten most of our humanity, turning us into subjects without agency, subjects who only suffer. Whenever a well-meaning teacher or professor handed me a book about immigration written by a non-immigrant, it angered me. What could this expert tell me that I didn't already know? I'd lived it. I'd survived it. Perhaps this realization has been the most vital in unpacking my own trauma, saying the words, a survivor. It didn't happen overnight. I began the real healing work when I met my therapist on October 2019, 20 years after I successfully crossed the border on June 10th, 1999. But healing truly became my 24/7 job once I met my now wife, who is a Reiki practitioner and a survivor of another trauma themselves. This privilege of having professionals and loved ones supporting me is not lost on me. It's a privilege that most immigrants can't afford, but it's important I mention it here because it's through this dedication to my mental health that I could land at the realization that yes, indeed, I am a survivor. I was not alone. I owe my life to the strangers that chose to help me during those 7 weeks in which we were robbed, were hungry, cold, thirsty, and were detained by Border Patrol multiple times as we tried to cross the Sonoran Desert. And so, Solito is specially dedicated to the 3 of these strangers that I consider family, even though we lost touch in 1999 and I still haven't heard from them. Chino and her daughter Carla, Patricia and her daughter Carla. With 100% certainty, I would not be standing here today without the love and empathy that they showed me during those 7 weeks from Ocos to La USA. 7 weeks during which no one in my family knew where I was or even if I was alive. It's also dedicated to every immigrant and person who showed us kindness when they didn't have to on our 3,000-mile trek north. My story is not the only story out there. There are hundreds, thousands of similar stories walking all around you, perhaps sitting next to you right now, or perhaps it's yourself waiting for me to shut up so you can officially start your first year of college. So what does my story have to do with today's convocation? With a theme I hear you'll hear and learn a lot about during your time at Luther, the common good. Solito, or this feeling of being alone, is something we all have felt and perhaps are feeling right now. It's a voice inside of you that some of us have used to propel us forward or even to get us into college, and it might even be a force that could guarantee your work ethic and potential success once you walk out of here today. But eventually, if you don't address that little voice, it will make your life miserable. I might even argue and say that if you don't address that voice, it might make the lives of those around you a lot harder. For myself, I've kept climbing one education echelon after another echelon, and because I didn't address this internal feeling of loneliness, of feeling that no one understood me, that there had not been anyone like me before, made me treat my body with animosity, anger, and hate. Some of it was my fault, most of it was not. After the Sonoran Desert, I moved to a predominantly immigrant and Latino neighborhood in Marin County, California. Marin County in 1999 and still today in 2023 was and continues to be a segregated place, similar to a lot of the United States. People hadn't yet imagined a stage for me to deliver this speech on. And for more than 20 years, this voice ate away at my happiness, kept me from healing. So I leave you today with a task. And that task is to address that internal voice that tells you that you're alone, that you don't belong, that makes you doubt yourself, that makes you angry at yourself, at others. Allow it to exist, but please vow to understand it. For 20 years, I truly believed that by not thinking about those 9 weeks, about my 9-year-old self, that trauma would be erased. And if it was erased, that voice would disappear. After every win, there it was, that kid who has always felt alone. He's still here. He's been with me delivering this speech. But instead of allowing him to ruin my joys and wins, I invite him with me to show him that it's okay to celebrate, that it's okay to rejoice, that he is allowed love, and he has survived the unsurvivable, and that makes him a fucking badass. All of you also have your own story you've had to overcome to get to this Thursday morning in Iowa. It doesn't matter how we've gotten to today. Right here, right now, we are all winning. You are winning. You have so much life, curiosity, experiences ahead of you. There shouldn't be an ounce of shame. You have gotten here with all of you, the negative, the positive. They exist inside of you. Learn to love it all inside of you and inside of others. We are more than the worst minutes and hours of our lives. We are more than what any politician, professor, parent, friend, foe, anyone has ever said about us. We are fully human. All of you are shining. Rejoice, rejoice, rejoice. Congratulations, badasses. Keep thriving, keep learning, keep believing you can heal. Nimetz Tasushta.
And as we go from this place and continue into this year of learning, this lifetime of learning, may God bless each of us with discomfort at easy answers, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that we instead may live deep within our hearts. May God bless us with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people and of creation, so that instead we may work for justice and freedom and peace. May God bless us with tears to shed for those who suffer from pain, injustice, starvation, and war, so that we may reach out our hands to comfort them and to turn pain into joy. May God bless us with enough foolishness to believe that we can make a difference in the world, doing what others claim cannot be done. Go now in peace to love and to learn and to serve. Thanks be to God.